I guess. Yeah.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the December 6th, 2022 meeting of the Litchfield Planning Board. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, there she is. She made it. All right. So I will start with the roll call of members. Michael Croto, Chair.
Kate Stevens, Vice Chair.
Ron Stevens, member.
Kimberly Queenan, Selectman's Rep.
James Buffetti, member.
Okay, and Sam is not here. Okay. First item is public input on non-agenda items not on the agenda for this evening. Is there any members of the public that have any wish to comment on non-agenda items this evening? Hearing none, I will close public input on non-agenda items. And go to number 1, which is the Capital Improvements Program for 2023-2028 public hearing. So tonight, this is kind of a combination planning board, capital improvement committee meeting. We do have members of the capital improvement committee with us this evening. Welcome. And we're going to do a brief PowerPoint presentation this evening, what the committee has done with the capital improvement plan. And I have Pete Stone, who's our citizens rep, and I believe Christina Harrison, who's in the back, is going to be presenting for the school. If you guys want to come to the front, we can do it that way, or however you want to, if you're comfortable sitting where you are, but certainly come to the forward and at the microphone. And maybe you can introduce yourselves to the planning board.
Pete Stone, Citizen Rep, Capital Improvement Committee.
I'm Christina Harrison, School Board Rep.
Good evening. So tonight, I just wanted to give the planning board, we are going to be presenting to the Board of Selectmen this presentation next Monday night at 6:30 here in Town Hall. I just want to go over it with the planning board this evening and introduce you guys to what we've been doing with the capital improvement plan. Jay does have a copy of the spreadsheet that he provided.
Not really.
It's more sort of a Greek interpretation, but we do have. We're going to have it on the screen, I think. So maybe we can use that one for reference point. I apologize. So just to start off, basically this capital improvement committee started meeting back in April this year of 2022. The capital improvement committee consists of a member of the planning board, a member of the board of selectmen. We have a school board representative, and we have citizens representatives. We have 2 this year, Pete Stone and Marion Colby. A budget committee representative, Carrie Douglas, and obviously we have non-voting members who sat on the committee this year, which is our town administrator who's here this evening, Kim Kleiner, welcome. Jay Minkara, who is our circuit rider and also an RPC director, who was also on the committee, and Douglas Totten, who is not here this evening, who is the business administrator for the Litchfield School District. Those people are non-voting members. So myself, Kim Queenan, Christina Harrison, Pete Stone, Marion Colby are all voting members. The rest are all non-voting. Okay. So basically, what does the CIP do? Well, I think we did this when we did this presentation last time to the planning board. We kind of went over the authority and purpose. Under the state statute, RSA 6745 and 6 define what the Capital Improvement Committee purpose and makeup is. Generally, it is originally it is a planning board function. However, the legislative body can vote, and it did in 2014, and put to warrant an article to designate the authority to the Board of Selectmen. So this board is actually an advisory board to the Board of Selectmen. We are voting to recommend. We do not vote on the plan itself. That goes to the Board of Selectmen for review, and we'll be presenting to them on Monday of next week. So this was basically formed at the direction of the Select Board, and basically what was the purpose? The purpose was to develop or to identify the needs of capital projects in town, and to develop a master plan for those projects for both the school and the town. The amount that the committee looked at was any projects or expenses over $50,000. So if you have something that was a project or a capital project that was over $50,000, or $50,000 or over, I should say, then it would be considered by the Capital Improvement Committee. This is a planning document, and it basically it can be used by different boards. For example, the Budget Committee can refer to it. It is the voters of the town and the Board of Selectmen. It does not accurately reflect a tax impact or actual funded projects at this stage, but the Board of Selectmen can choose which projects it wants to put to warrant based on this advisory document. You'll see the meeting summary for this year. We started in April and we ended, we ended pretty much the last meeting, which was on November 29th, to organize this presentation, but we did review what the department heads and the school had submitted for their projects for 2022. And we also discussed ARPA funding. So the town of Litchfield has received approximately $900,000 in ARPA funds, which was was awarded to the town under the Federal American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Those funds are put in a separate account, and they are to be used specifically for basically for the town of Litchfield to look at projects dealing with capital improvements. And this was brought to us when Troy Brown was here. Had to get some guidance on it, but eventually did get the guidance, and the Capital Improvement Committee was basically charged with deciding where best to use ARPA fund money. Obviously, what is the Capital Improvement Plan? Well, that plan outlines the schedule of proposed projects, investments in land, buildings, equipment over a period of at least 6 years. This year, the committee chose or decided only to focus up to 2023 and on ARPA funding. The projects are classified by need, urgency, and timing. And of course, department heads, boards, and commissions provide information to the Capital Improvement Committee based on the costs and the needs and sources of funding. Obviously, I mentioned this again, the CIP assists the Board of Selectmen, the Budget Committee, and the voters of the town in their consideration of the annual budget, placing large capital investments within the context of a long-term plan. And under state law, basically, the Litchfield is also required to adopt a CIP in order to continue assessing impact fees. So impact fees on new developments in town. The benefits of impact fees, well, those basically give the town or allow the town to offset costs for new buildings, equipment purchases, and capital investments necessary to accommodate residential development, the costs that would otherwise be borne solely by taxpayers, if not. And basically, once adopted, the CIP committee needs to ensure that that plan remains a living, breathing document, and that has been the goal or the vision of the CIP to make this a continuing process to continue to rely upon the capital improvement plan, or the town to rely on it in making its decisions in terms of capital projects, as that's part of our vision statement. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Christina Harrison. She is a member of the school board. Good evening. And she's going to run us through the school district's projects up to 2023. So,
Great.
Christina, I'll let you take over.
Very much. Thank you for allowing me to present tonight. I'm excited to share with you some of the completed projects that the school district has accomplished in the last 2 years since we had the first capital improvement plan, and things to come, exciting things to come. So first I wanted to share with you some of our completed projects. The largest project that we've undertaken so far has been the LMS Energy Efficiency Project, and that includes a renovation of the building of LMS. We expect for that project to be completed in the spring of 2023, and that will remove several different items off of the old version of the capital improvement plan. We were able to replace the aging heating and ventilation equipment at LMS. We had found out that upon inspection, our oil tank at the middle school had not passed inspection, or would not pass the next inspection, and so the district decided it's either time to recommit to a new oil tank or find alternative energy solutions, and so with voter approval gained in spring of 2022. We undertook this project. We've thus far replaced all of the heating and ventilation equipment at LMS to improve efficiency and climate control. We've insulated a 4-inch gap between the roof and the upper part of the wall that extended around the entire perimeter of the building, which was leading to heating loss, energy, and increased energy bills there. As part of the renovation, we reclaimed 2 educational spaces by reconfiguring the locker rooms. So we once had these huge boys and girls locker rooms off of the gym that no one ever used. So we kept a small portion of it to be locker rooms. We were able to get 2 classroom spaces. So that eliminated the need for future additional classrooms being built on at LMS. So we were able to remove that from the CIP. The kitchen renovation, which was also on the CIP, was included in this project, and we expect that to be completed this summer. We've had delays waiting for the kitchen equipment to arrive, the new equipment to arrive, so that will be completed by the end of this summer. At CHS, we completed part of the energy efficiency project that was listed on the CIP. We replaced all the indoor lighting with high-efficiency LEDs on sensors, and that was all done through grant funding. That was a, no taxpayer cost project, and that will reduce our energy consumption at the high school. And we were able to replace the curbing, fill cracks, and seal the parking lot at the high school, which was also another item on the CIP. That was completed in the summer of 2022, and we repaired the CH bleachers rather than replace them. We repaired them, and they passed inspection in 2021. So we're, getting things done and ticking things off the list as we go. So our next big capital project or capital need is the new elementary school. I know at the current CIP was listed as a top priority for the town, and it's certainly a top priority for the district. We've established that it's a critical need, and it was rated urgent by the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. So the first step in that direction is with a land purchase that we expect to have on the ballot this spring in March of 2023 for the total of $500,000. We have a signed purchase and sales agreement for a 35-acre lot that is now privately owned, and the owner will have naming rights for the new elementary school once it's built. We're sending out a press release tomorrow at 4 p.m. with more information about that, and the reason the district has moved in the direction of identifying and seeking an agreement for a land purchase was because of the feasibility studies that we had done on the current Griffin Memorial School Elementary School, that deemed the current GMS site and the existing LMS site where we thought we might be able to build a new school, the sites were not adequate or feasible to build a new school upon. So this is the direction that we've decided to go in. So that is our ask for 2023. And in future years, we're hoping to have a warrant article for a new elementary school. So this would replace the facility and equipment. The estimates we have are at 90,000 square feet, at 325 square foot, but those I know will increase. So those are the most up-to-date numbers I have at this point. GMS has several deficiencies that create a critical need for a new school. We submitted an application for building aid, and we're ranked second in the state of all the applications in the state for life and safety needs, which kind of, hammers home the point that this is a real need and not a want. We ranked number five on the state list for building aid, and we believe that's due to the fact that we did not get any points on this rating scale for free and reduced lunch. We don't have a free and reduced lunch population or a lower income population. And so the schools that placed higher on the ranking with the application than we did do have lower income populations. So that's kind of where we got dinged. So we're currently planning a warrant article for the bond in March of 2024 or 25, depending on what happens with building aid. As other schools, as other districts, pass a bond or don't pass a bond, we're kind of trying to figure out the most strategic way to go about qualifying for building aid, because that will help a lot. And the timing of, is it in our best interest to pursue this in March of 24 or 25? So that would be, so what we've listed on the CIP for that is that priority ranking of urgent. In 2023, we have $125,000 to be placed into the Capital Improvement Expendable Trust Fund to go towards planning and architectural fees. And then a bond payment starting in 2024 of $2,771,834 annually for what was you did with 20 years?
Yeah,
was
we
that
did
Jay?
20.
And that includes the interest as well. So in addition to the new elementary school, other priorities we have moving forward are district-wide capital improvements. The board has had to use our capital reserve fund and capital improvement expendable trust fund monies to cover a deficit this year. So we want to replenish those with a deposit every year of about $125,000. Our goal is to do that using year-end funds and not an additional ask of taxpayers. In addition, we will need to, in 2025, address the LMS parking lot. It's inadequate for parking purposes, but also there's only one way of entry into the school property, and that's through McElwain Drive, I believe it's called, McElwain. During events and nighttime activities where parents and community members are coming to the school, McElwain backs up with parking on both sides of the street, which would make it very, very difficult for emergency vehicles to come in or for people to leave in a hurry. So it's really kind of an emergency issue there. So redoing the parking lot would include an egress. We have a right to a deeded egress through Stagecoach, so we would have to work that out for emergency uses only, and also address the draining issues that were occurring underneath the LMS parking lot. We've had a drainage pipe fail, resulting in a sinkhole, and we know that there are more aging pipes underneath that, so we want to address that appropriately. Next, we have CHS Energy Efficiency Project. Once we have data from how the LMS Energy Efficiency Project is doing, we want to expand our solar energy generation to have that at CHS as well to cut down on utility costs. The LMS gym floor replacement is slated for 2027 at a cost of $125,000. That has been sanded down to its last possible sanding, and termites and other critters have started coming up through the thin wood, so we're looking to have that replaced. And then on the desirable category, we have LMS fields. Currently, our middle school does not have any practice or play fields for the sports that we have at the middle school. They are bused either to the high school, to Dara Pond, or to Sawmill, or they walk down through the woods to the Griffin Memorial site to use the fields there. So we feel in order to stay competitive with other middle schools in the area or in our tri-county league, that we need to make accommodations for our LMS teams as well, especially if the new building passes for GMS and we don't own that property anymore. Those students will need additional play fields to play and practice. CHS irrigation we have slated for when it fails. We did some upgrades this year. We replaced a few pumps, but the piping that was laid for the irrigation wasn't up to the standards that we would expect for a field that size, for the stadium field. And then deferrable, kind of a pie in the sky dream would be to have stadium turf field and stadium field lights. That's been a want for, as long as we've had a high school, I think. And so we did not include a price or a timeline on that. It's just, it's once we fix everything else that we need to fix in the district, that's something we might want to visit. So I think that's it for me, unless there are any questions. I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions? Anybody? Okay. And,
Well, I had a couple
Kate,
questions.
sorry.
Why is the desirable LMS field project placed ahead of the LMS gym floor, which is necessary? Is that because of the timeline on when?
Yeah,
that
I
floor
think when
will
we
need-
did it, it was just, that's how it laid out. I guess it should be flip-flopped.
Well, are we going to be able to get, 4 more years
Out of
out of
the
that gym floor?
gym floor, we can. Yes.
I know. Yeah, I guess we'll make do no matter.
Yeah.
What, right. But that was one thing that was. I just don't see
Yeah,
why
but
we
I
would
think the
put
thought
something-
was with the CHS energy efficiency, if we can get that done sooner rather than later, we'll experience energy savings that will help us fund other projects.
Okay. So, and I did want to say, I appreciate that the schools agreed to stay on to the CIP plan. I know that there was discussion about having a separate CIP from the town, and I appreciate coming together and working together. I think that works out best for the taxpayers. My one concern is that, like this LMS project, I still agree that it was a good project to do, but it included projects that were slated for a couple years down the line, and which helped to balloon the price of that project, and I think that contributed to the fire truck warrant article failing this year. And that's a real need for the town. So I'm just hoping that the school could work a little better to the plan. Like we really appreciate that you're still on it, but really try to honor this separation of projects, because by pulling all of that in, it costs a lot more upfront, a lot more than we were expecting, and a lot more than what was planned for over the CIP plan.
Okay, I'll bring that back.
Thank you. And I think, yep, that was it. That was it for the school. Thanks.
okay. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to have Pete Stone, who is one of our citizens reps on the Capital Improvement Committee, go through ARPA and the town. Pete?
Sure. For our plan, we struggled with this a little bit initially because we were just trying to get our footing on what was actually eligible to be used on the funds. And then there was conversation about how we spread it out and make sure everybody got a piece of the pie. So the first thing we put on the list was some taser replacement for the police department. The interesting thing about the tasers, I guess what they have today currently is in a mixed state of repair or disrepair. So some of them are not working. So we allocated funds for this to make sure that they could do a full replacement for the department up all at one time. Second, for the police department, I guess it kind of covers the fire department a little bit because it's some of the dispatch screens and some other networking equipment that sit over in that building. That's at about $59,401. The tasers were $47,320. The next thing we have on the list, you'll probably like this one. We decided to put $375,900 into a replacement fire engine to make sure that they have a buffer to help sell the warrant for the remaining value. That's currently estimated at $740,000. However, due to demand of buying and purchasing fire equipment, that is anticipated to escalate the longer we let it set. For the highway department, they had requested a new backhoe. Did that make it on the warrant, Mike? I don't remember. I thought one of these had gone out and failed.
Yeah, one of them did.
But to make sure that we can continue operations at the dump and other earth-moving needs around the town, we had decided to place $155,000 into that replacement backhoe. So that would actually cover the cost for that element completely, so it wouldn't have to go to warrant. They could buy it outright. There's also a medium-duty plow / dump truck for $157,000. Again, this would completely cover the cost of that vehicle, which is a replacement for some of the aging fleet that we currently have. Recreation Commission, we were putting about 60 grand aside for repairs of Memorial Park irrigation system. Apparently they are quite frequently paying for replacement parts, pumps, and it really needs a good overhaul so we don't have to deal with it and kind of get death by 1,000 cuts on that front. So we were looking to opt out for $60K to take care of that. Finally, for the ARPA fund distribution, the library came to us and had a bundled need that would take care of the alarm system, replacement of the downstairs carpet, irrigation system work, some lower shelving replacement, and upper door replacement. I'm not exactly sure which door it is in the facility. It's just listed as upper door. And that was a $50,000 ask to cover all of those miscellaneous items. Before we move off of the ARPA, anybody have any questions about that before we get into the normal plan structure, since it's a bit different?
Anybody have any questions?
So is there not a new full fire truck then on here? I thought the fire truck was closer to like 700,000.
That's the cost of the fire engine is $740. That's the target. We're only allocating $375,900 towards it of the ARPA funds. This is ARPA fund distribution, not part of the warrant plan.
So that starts. I'm just looking at the plan here. It says the total project cost for that fire truck is $446,000.
That's the remaining value.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Okay, thank you.
You're looking ahead.
Sorry.
I'm like, she's doing math, and I'm trying to figure out why. It's all good. Any other questions on ARPA? Okay. So we've gone through the police. This was part of the conversation we had on the previous CIP to extend the police facility from the fire department to phase 2 of that project to build a new police station. Initially, we're looking at $200,000 that would go into engineering costs. This is kind of allowing a gauge to see if we're going to proceed further. Again, just calling out most of everything in this plan, probably something I should have started with. Everything in this plan is set the way the departments came to us and what their needs were. We did not change anything after 2023. And that was we had some timing issues and some other things that kind of came into play. So this 24 forward will get picked up next spring, and then that stuff will be adjusted. So we're predominantly focusing on 2023. Again, engineering costs of $200,000, which would be slated to go to warrant in the spring for the police department. To the fire department, this would be a payout starting in 2025 of $55,769 annually. our 6-year total of $233,077, with a total project cost of $446,155. That would be the remainder after the ARPA funds are applied to the estimated value of the $740,000. With $223,078 would go past the 6-year of the capital improvement plan as it sits today. For the highway department, they already have existing revenue of 1.2 million to cover some roads. I don't recall where that came from.
Block grant.
Block grant, okay. So that's already sitting there. They are still looking to get an additional $200,000 a year to make sure they can stay on schedule and plan with their maintenance of the roads. There is a full plan that we can share. I didn't want to include it in the deck because it was a bit busy. Again, calling out some pieces of equipment, the 2 ARPA items, the backhoe and the medium-duty plow truck, which are zeroed out here just with the projected project cost. And then there was another ask for a heavy-duty plow. That one we have marked as deferrable. They're estimating that to be $275,000 with payments beginning in 2025, $32,288 a year until that's paid off. For the Recreation Commission, obviously we have the ARPA funds for the irrigation. There was a need for, they have existing funds of $122,000 to enhance pickleball courts and a playground. There was an offset for the playground, that's accounting for the $53,000 in 2023. They're also looking for town hall improvements that we have labeled as desirable for a total of 1.9 million, with estimated payments of 190,918 annual. What was the term on that, Jay? I don't remember. Was it 15 or 20?
I think I put it as 10.
Oh, you did a 10. Okay, for a 10-year bond. Parking lot updates at Royal Memorial Park. There was conversation about this. Obviously, they'd want to get the town hall improvements done ahead of the parking lot, so new construction equipment doesn't come in and destroy the parking lot. And that is estimated at $110,000, and that would be a one-time payout for that to complete that. And then there's a request for resurfacing of Sawmill Park tennis courts. We have that deemed as necessary. They're estimating that cost for that resurfacing would be $100,000.
And that 122,000, that's impact fee money, just so you know.
Yep. All right, and then for the Conservation Commission, they're looking for $2 million total, and we've had that evenly spread out, $333,333 over the 6-year plan. And then finally, we have, going back to the library, that was the $50,000 roll up of the ARPA funds to cover their miscellaneous items that they had.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Good luck reading that last page.
I was going to say.
Well, just one comment, right? If the fire truck does not get approved at warrant article, that money goes back in.
We'd have to
For next year.
re-roll it.
Right, we allocated $375,000 to go towards the fire truck, but if the voters don't pay for the difference,
The offset, yeah.
then we can use that money the following year, put it back in.
Or other projects, or?
Well, yeah, we'll
or-
probably back into this committee, right, to prioritize.
Okay. That's good.
Well, they might get one more shot at it. Because we have to spend it by 2026, right?
I believe that's right. We're committed by 2026, right?
So we might be able to get another run after this warrant.
Warrant, okay. So I just want to make sure I understood this right.
Sure.
2024 on, it has not been like balanced as far as when those.
Well, we balanced it from a perspective of making sure it's all applied, and then we made sure the calculations were all there, but we did not actually go through and start making adjustments projected in the future. You know, we were running too far behind, and we wanted to get this in so we could work through warrants and
Okay, good.
budgets
So
and
we're not
that sort of
planning a
thing.
bond for town hall, police, and schools all in the same year. Okay.
No.
Wanted to make sure.
No, these are all targets based on the department's head initial needs. And
Yep.
we just wanted to account for them, and then everything in '23, we were fine with putting forward as
Okay.
complete, and then we'll pick this up after the March elections
Okay, will that be like a
to reset.
quarterly meeting, do you think, or are you gonna continue more regularly?
We'll
Well,
have to pick up more regularly in the spring.
Yeah, this year was a little crazy because of COVID, and we had a late start, unfortunately, and
And Troy left.
And then
and
Troy left.
left, and then Kim came on board, so things got crazy.
Okay,
But
I will-
next year, we
yeah.
hope to.
I'll say the one exception, though, an exception, I don't know about I say the one, is there was, initially the Conservation Commission's request was for three, funding in 3 years, larger chunks. So that was spread over the course to kind of even
okay.
the total cost over the years.
That
So
was the
there
one,
there was some
that was the
effort
one change
to
over
even.
past '23.
Right.
Oh, that's right, I think I remember that being 666,000 on the last one.
Exactly.
and they-
Yeah,
and
like
they
every
split
other
it.
year or something
I see,
on the
okay.
prior plan.
And the parking lot at Roy Memorial Park was moved just because it made more sense to start that after construction of Talent Hall
Is that
improvements.
an expansion? Cause wasn't that paved?
That's what I thought. I don't remember exactly what
I
that
went
was.
over there and it was like, and
I
it was
think it was
paved.
part of the area that was and part of the area that wasn't, was my recall.
Yeah.
All right.
I
But
just
that
don't
was
remember which
shifted for
part
that
it was.
reason, so that was the other shift, as I recall, that was made.
Yeah, because the last time I was down there was construction equipment down the one end of it.
Yeah, cause I pulled in there one day and was like, oh my god, where did this come from? And I'm pretty sure it was
Your
the
car didn't
entire
get swallowed in a pothole?
No,
And you
believe
were
it or
like,
not.
yes.
I thought, and yeah, I really thought that that was finished. Okay, maybe it'll be expanded or something. All right, and oh yeah, that was it. Yeah, it was just more questions about the laying out of things.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
since you clarified that,
Which completely makes sense.
because the I guess I just want to give a reminder that that survey from a couple years ago, I think it was the school, elementary school and conservation
Yep.
were highest priority, so it just, and I know the police department originally had said they wouldn't put themselves in front of a school, so I just didn't want to accidentally adjust those, priorities.
No, we should
Yeah.
probably add that to the schedule for next time,
Right.
Mike, to do another survey, because obviously.
Yeah, we'll probably do
We'll
that.
be 3 years out.
Right,
Yeah.
Definitely.
that was all I had.
Okay. So obviously we have this, the spreadsheet, we put that, together, that's one of our slides. It basically outlines everything that we've talked about this evening. Thank you both for
Thank you.
your presentations. At this point, I'm gonna open it up to the public, 'cause this is a public hearing, on the capital improvement plan this evening. So does anybody from the public have any questions for the capital improvement committee? Okay. Hearing none, I will close public input on the capital improvement. And any last questions from the board? No good? Okay. Well, I want to thank the Capital Improvement Committee for all of their hard work this time around, getting things to prioritize in the short amount of time that we had. As I said, we will be presenting again to the Board of Selectmen on December 12th at 6:30 here in Town Hall. And at that point, the plan will go into their hands, and once into their hands, they will have to make the big decisions in terms of the warrant. So that's basically it for that part of this presentation. Thank you, Pete. Have a good night. Thanks. Okay, the next item on the agenda for this evening, just give me a moment to pull that up. Here we go. Is number 2, a site plan proposed by Thoreau Development LLC at 522 Charles Bancroft Highway, tax map 22, lot 11. The proposal in the northern commercial zone is to include a 5,500 square foot gas/convenience store, including a drive-through lane set behind fuel dispensers in front and on the south side of the site. The back westerly of the 15.3 acre lot will include 9 self-storage units totaling 22,900 square feet. If the aforementioned application is accepted, notice is hereby extended to application approval, consideration, and/or continuations to a date certain as required. Is the applicant present this evening?
We are, Mr. Chairman. Good
And
evening.
would the applicant like to introduce themselves to the board?
Absolutely. For the board, my name is Jim Petropoulos. I'm a professional engineer at Hayner Swanson, Inc., doing business at 3 Congress Street in Nashua, New Hampshire, tonight representing Thoreau Development. With me this evening is Renee Thoreau. He and his brother are the principals of this development. Also with me is Attorney Morgan Hollis from Gottesman and Hollis. Morgan has been the project attorney for this project for several years, and we thought it would be a good idea to bring him out tonight in case any historical questions come up about the project. With us also is Bob Bollinger, professional engineer with GPI. They're the traffic consultant for the project, as well as Frank Montero, also with GPI. Frank brings with him a very impressive career and resume of gas station design work, and if there's any questions that you will have about the operation of the facility, he's our man to answer those questions. So, as just read in the record, Mr. Chairman, we're seeking a site plan approval for proposed development to be located at 522 Charles Bancroft Highway. What we'd like to accomplish this evening is I'm going to present an overview of the project. There's a lot of information here. I'm going to try to be succinct, complete, and move through it fairly quickly.
Okay.
What I'd like to do is provide that presentation. I'm then going to ask Bob Bollinger to come up and speak a little bit about traffic and some of the improvements that we're contemplating. And then all of us, our entire team, would be here to answer any questions that the board or the public may have.
Okay, so what I think I'll have you do is I'll have you present. I'm going to kind of do it a little the other way around. So I'll have you present, make your presentation. Then when you're finished, what I will do is I will open it up to public comment, and we'll have an opportunity for obviously the board first, then public comment. And then at that point, we'll decide whether to accept the application for completeness, and if we have to schedule for another hearing or so forth, or, obviously because of the issues involved in this site project, then we'll do so. Does that seem fair enough to the board?
Yep.
Okay, very good. So we'll let you take the floor, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board members may recall that the planning board, we have been here before on this project on at least one other occasion. Back in February of '22, we came before you and presented the project for input to the ZBA for some buffer impacts that I'll talk about in a little bit. But over the past several years, Renee and his brother have, with Morgan's help, have obtained no less than 8 variances and special exceptions for this project, and they're listed on sheet 1 of our plan set. Our formal application, Mr. Chairman, to this planning board included our application with fee, and a butters list, complete set of plans, a full stormwater report, a traffic report, a narrative. We have 1 waiver that I'll touch upon this evening, and then copies of transmittals sent to other town agencies. Jay, I'm going to seek your help on manning the screen, so I thank you in advance of that. We have an aerial up on the board right now. It is a 15.3 acre site at 522 Charles Bancroft Highway. We're in the northern commercial zone in Litchfield, but we have 3 overlay districts: the multifamily, the wetland conservation, and aquifer protection. Abutters to this project include the town of Litchfield Conservation Commission to the north and to the west. We have St. Francis Church to the south and to the west. There's an auto repair facility over in the southeast corner that along Charles Bancroft Highway. And then across the street is property owned by Continental Paving. The site itself, I'm sure, is a very visible site. You've probably all seen it or been by it. With regard to topography, it is a flat site up near the Charles Bancroft Highway, but it has some moderate topography as it moves west towards the Merrimack River, which is about 500 feet away from our property. We've done a number of soil test pits on the property for both the stormwater and septic. Sandy soils in the front part and fine somy land in the back. No groundwater up front, and we get to groundwater at about 7 feet in the back of the property. There are wetlands on the property, and Jay, if you could screen down one to our existing conditions plan. Great, thank you. So there are wetlands on the property. They've been surveyed by a certified wetland scientist, Mark Jacobs. We have Leech Brook that flows in a westerly direction coming from the Charles Bancroft Highway, pretty much along our southerly property line. And then we have this larger, poorly drained area right really in the center in the northern portion of the property between us and the Concom property. And you'll see on the site all the various buffers the town of Litchfield requires: a 50-foot no disturb, a 75-foot building, and a 100-foot leach field setback. Current utilities in the area are water out in the Charles Bancroft, along with power, telecommunications, and gas utilities. And Jay, if you could go to our display plan, I'll talk a little bit about the proposed development. Great, thank you. So it is being proposed to construct a multi-use project that consists of a gas convenience store building in the front of the property and self-storage units in the back of the property. Now, this project has evolved slightly over the years in which Renee started. Just a couple changes over time. The building square footage of the retail building went from about 8,000 square feet to 5,500 square feet. The number of curb cuts has been reduced from 2 to 1 onto the Charles Bancroft. One of the original versions of the plan contained a car wash, a separate car wash building. That has been removed from the plan. We have added a drive-through lane behind the store for a coffee vendor that I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. We've got additional parking behind the building that one of the earlier versions didn't have, as well as a relocated location for a truck fueling component, which is part of the plan. Now, most of these changes were to the front. The back really hasn't changed. There are, I believe, 9 self-storage buildings located in the back of the property. So let me talk a little bit about some details about the gas convenience store. As I mentioned, it's a 1-story building, 5,500 square feet. It will include a retail component, a coffee vendor, and a pizza vendor. And I think if you've been to the modern gas station today, you walk in and they have these different sections of the open retail area where you could buy various small retail goods, but also they're popular for people for lunch, as well as coffee, which will be located within the building. Parking for 32 parking spaces in the front of the store, the traditional parking in the front and on the side. And there's also parking for employees in the back of the store. 8 gas dispensers in the front field. That'll be underneath a canopy. There's 4 stations out there. Each station will have a dispenser on each side. I mentioned we have a drive-through lane and an order station behind for the coffee vendor. The hours of operation of the building, tentatively 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. And the number of employees for the store varies at different times of day, but probably over the course of that day, 8 employees in that facility. The self-storage are 9 buildings, pardon me, totaling just under 23,000 square feet. The unit sizes vary from a 5 by 10 space to upwards to a 20 by 30 space. So difficult to really get a count on the number of units within the facility, but they're the traditional self-storage buildings that you see throughout the area. It is completely gated It is a gated facility, a powered gate. It is completely fenced. You will need a card as a customer, a renter of this facility to gain access. There'll be no staff in this facility, and customers can access any time. There'll be some low-level security lighting at night, and security cameras will be present throughout the back development. So a couple key elements to the site plan. You can see the single-access curb cut onto Charles Bancroft Highway. Convenience store customers will be able to enter both from the north and the south and quickly make a right turn into the fueling positions, as well as parking for the store. They will also be able to work in a counterclockwise manner to be driver's side for the order station and the pickup window on the coffee. And then they'll exit back out through the main entrance. The truck fueling facility, trucks will enter into the site. They will need to make a U-turn movement. And there are, I believe, two fueling positions in the truck fueling area. And they'll be able to leave the site through the main curb cut. And then anybody participating or visiting in the back storage units, again, will use the curb cut, work its way back and in and out of the site. Now, the plan will include a full complement of signage and pavement markings to assist visitors to the site. Charles Bancroft Highway. Our plan shows conceptually some improvements that are being proposed, and Bob will speak to those in greater detail. But in general, there'll be a widening across the front of our site to accommodate a left turn pocket from the south into the site, as well as a decel lane to be able to make a right turn, get off the Bancroft and make a right turn into the development. The plan does propose sidewalks across the frontage of our property. Bob Bollinger will show you an overall corridor plan that shows these improvements. Now, Rick Charbonneau is in the audience this evening. You folks know Rick. Rick is aware of our project. We have had discussions with Rick. And as you know, his property across the street has a recent driveway, recently built within the past 5 years, driveway just south of this site. And Rick felt it was wise and prudent if we were performing improvements to this section of the Bancroft for a turn pocket for this development to also widen and provide a turn pocket for his development. His development does not warrant that at this time, but in the future it likely will, and he thought it was important maybe to construct those at the same time. Part of that includes a sidewalk from this site. It will cross at the curb cut, and on the east side of the Charles Bancroft, sidewalk will be constructed within right-of-way all the way down to Albuquerque. And that is part of the proposed off-site roadway improvements. Parking for our project. Litchfield's got some unique parking requirements. A total of 109 spaces are required for the development. We're providing 32 spaces for the retail component. We have requested a waiver, Mr. Chairman, for that. And the reasons are that it's our position that 32 spaces is ample for that facility out front. The town's requirement for parking for this type of development is 10 spaces per 1,000 square feet, or 50 spaces. It seemed quite onerous. As I mentioned, the self-storage doesn't require parking per se. People will enter through the gate. They will drive to their unit. They'll park in the paved areas between the unit, drop off goods, pick up their goods, and then leave the site. For a waiver to be granted, Mr. Chairman, we need to prove hardship. And our hardship really is there's no reasonable way to add 77 spaces to this project. We believe the code creates an unreasonable requirement with no benefit to the public with those 77 additional spaces. Spirit and intent, your section 120.14 seeks to have adequate parking for a development. That's a fair thing. We believe we have that, 32 spaces out front, and given the unique use of the self-storage facility, there's really no need for detailed parking. So we do believe we comply to the spirit and intent, and of course, less parking means less pavement. Open space, your requirement is 35%, we have 75%. Utilities, we will service the retail building with sewer, with septic system, water, both domestic and fire, underground power, and telecommunications, and I believe gas is available to this site. I'd like to talk stormwater for a minute. You know, as a designer for development, we attempt to address quality and quantity of development runoff. With regard to quantity, we want to make sure if we're paving a site that we don't add increased volumes of water off our property onto our next door neighbors. And with regard to quality, we try to include measures in the stormwater design that seek to remove some of the pollutants that come off of paved areas. This property is located within the NHDES St. Gobain consent decree boundary for PFAS. And what that means to us is it prohibits us from promoting recharge for stormwater, okay, because they don't want rainwater in this region to get into the ground. So what we're proposing are two stormwater areas, basins, that will act as stormwater ponds. There's one located just behind the retail in the truck to fueling position. And then there's one located at the very west end of the site. Thank you, Jay, which will pick up the storage facility. Each basin will contain a sediment forebay, a riprap plunge pool. And what they do is they reduce velocities entering these stormwater areas, and they're able to kind of trap some of the larger particulate in the stormwater. The permanent pool of the stormwater practice will be lined. It will be lined with a low permeability fill so that water can't move into the ground. So we're gonna contain this water in these basins, and what we do is we purposely undersize an outlet so that big slug of water that comes in can't get through the system. It builds up and then lets itself out at a slower rate, and that's really kind of the theory of quantitative control. Again, the vegetation within these stormwater ponds provides biological uptake of certain pollutants, and our stormwater design has been submitted to town as well as to the New Hampshire DES. Overall, we feel the system provides both quantitative and qualitative treatment in accordance with your requirements. Next slide, just for a second, Jay. We mentioned that there are buffer impacts. We did receive a special exception from the zoning board the last time you were here. You saw this. I thought it was important to show you that in yellow are the buffer impacts, and really therefore gaining access to that back part of the land and for the stormwater practice in the west end of the site. In total, 27,115 square feet are being proposed to be impacted. But of that, 92% of it will be revegetated with loam seed and a conservation mix. Only 8% will be for pavement in making that connection to the back of the site. I also think it's important to mention that on a site that's somewhat unique with 15 acres, with probably 5 to 7 acres of wetland area with Leech Brook on it, there are no wetland impacts as a result of this project. Landscaping and lighting plans have been submitted, Mr. Chairman, as part of the package. They're included in our plan set. There isn't really much to landscape in a self-storage facility. That particular part of the site is surrounded by both shrub and treed vegetation in the back, and certainly that will remain. The front part of landscaping has focused in on kind of the sign location and some of the areas in the front of the site. The Conservation Commission was cooperative in the several meetings we had with them. They did ask us to pay special attention to that area up near their parking lot, up near Charles Bancroft Highway. There is a buffer that exists there today. It looks to me to be a woody buffer. I did take some pictures of it today. I don't think it's the greatest buffer in the world, but there's some current vegetation between us and them, and we hope to maintain that. But Furthermore, we also hope to supplement that, and our plans do call for some evergreen plantings there. But the goal is to try to protect that buffer as best we can. Lighting has been a combination of light poles, canopy lighting, and building-mounted lights. It is downcast lighting, cut-off luminaires, which means the source is kind of tucked up and into a protective area so that lighting is projected downward. Architectural elevations, Jay, if you may. We did bring a picture of the proposed store, and it is a pitched roof facility, as you can see, fixed glass windows, kind of a combination of clapboard siding with some stone accents. The goal was to try to get a more traditional New England appearance, cupola in the center of the building. The height to the ridge line is 28 feet for the proposed building. And we did provide also elevations of the canopied roof as part of our plans. The storage units, I did not include them, and I forgot to bring a slide, so I brought a picture, but I think we've all seen the storage units, colors yet to be determined. And generally to the peak, they're probably 8 to 10 feet in height, so it's a traditional storage unit. I'm wrapping up here with a couple final thoughts. Plan review has been submitted. I see Lou here. Hi, Lou. I thought Lou has provided comments to us. I thought the comments were very fair, and we're in the process of addressing and responding back to Lou. We have also received comments from the Litchfield Fire Department, as well as a recent Conservation Commission letter. And so, Mr. Chairman, that as we progress with the project, we'd be looking forward to addressing those final comments. In summary, with regard to our application, before I turn it over to Bob to speak to traffic, we believe the plan complies with the Litchfield site plan regulations. As mentioned, there's been a number of items where relief has been granted by the Zoning Board of Adjustment. We have tried to minimize environmental impacts. Of the 15 acres of site, only 7 acres are being disturbed. Of that, about 3 acres of impervious cover. The fueling station, the gas station, is intended to be a state-of-the-art facility. We believe our stormwater plan is a strong plan for this site. We believe the impacts to Charles Bancroft Highway address the traffic that's created by this development, including the sidewalk improvements. So I know that's a lot of information, Mr. Chairman, but I thought it was worth it to go through, at least at this first hearing. I'd like to ask Bob Bollinger to come up and talk traffic, and then we'll get right back to your agenda with comments and questions and public input. Sure.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Robert Bollinger, a professional engineer with Greenman Peterson, doing business at 116 South River Road in Bedford, New Hampshire. I've been retained by the Turo Company as a traffic engineer on the project. What I'd like to do is provide sort of a high-level overview. I realize there's a lot of information with this application. We have received preliminary comments from Mr. Makara. I was able to review the staff report today. I also wanted to let the board know that approximately a month or so ago, we did submit the traffic analysis and conceptual improvement plan simultaneously to New Hampshire DOT. This project will be seeking a New Hampshire DOT driveway permit. And so it is a simultaneous review, and obviously the applicant and the project team are aware that any possible condition of approval would include obtaining the necessary New Hampshire DOT driveway permit and any other necessary state permits. So with that being said, Mr. Chair, I will certainly try to spare everyone in the room the gory detail of going through the couple hundred pages of the traffic study. Again, I would like to hit on just a few high-level points, kind of bring you through the methodology, and then obviously, as Mr. Petropoulos alluded to, we do have some planned improvements for Route 3A that ultimately we felt were warranted by the project, and we feel that are appropriate and sufficient mitigation. But just again, to kind of start from the beginning, we did have a formal scoping meeting with New Hampshire DOT last fall, and at that meeting, New Hampshire DOT basically sets forth the parameters that they require for traffic analysis in their review anyway. They were satisfied with limiting the study area to just the proposed site driveway location along 3A with the single access point as proposed before you this evening. They did request that we analyze specific peak periods, weekday morning commuter period, weekday evening commuter period, as well as a Saturday midday condition. Based upon that, we collected our data and basically started building our traffic networks. Traffic data were collected in 2021. What the state requires is a couple different parameters by which you analyze your traffic data. First of all, the state requires that you adjust to a peak month traffic condition, so you're sort of accounting for a worst case scenario. Secondly, because we're still trying to figure out what traffic volumes are like, or at least the COVID influence on traffic volumes. So the state does require that you apply an additional factor if need be to bring volumes back up to pre-pandemic levels. So appropriate factorization occurred, which brought us to our baseline traffic volume conditions. Before I get into volumes, I did just want to also note that as part of our due diligence, we did look at crash history along this section of Route 3A. More or less, we were concerned, or we kind of drew a cordon between Corning Road and Albuquerque. That was the area that we felt was sufficient given the influence of our site. We found that it had a generally very low crash history. We found no history of a fatal incident occurring within the last 3 to 4 years is the time frame that we look at, which is what we would currently analyze. Most of the crashes involved property damage only. We averaged, I believe the data says it was about 4 crashes per year, so it doesn't stand out as a specifically a high crash area location. Also, as part of our due diligence, we did take a look at prevailing speeds out there. Folks in this room are probably well aware it's posted at 40. We found they were going a little bit faster than 40. Average speed was about 42 or 43 miles per hour, depending on direction. And something which will come into the discussion later, we actually measure something called the 85th percentile speed. So that's the speed at which 85% of the observed drivers are driving at or below. And typically that's the volume that you would use for design if you're speaking about making geometric improvements, as we were. So, and those speeds were, again, a little bit higher. That was about 45 to 47 miles per hour. So these are all things that we typically do as part of our due diligence. We obviously we're interested in traffic volumes, we're interested in speed, we're interested in the safety component of the crash history. So we try to look at everything involved. Looking ahead to the future, the state requires an opening year analysis as well as looking at 10 years into the future. So what our study considered was 2022, and again, we looked forward to 2032 as well. It's a standard practice. There's standard methodologies by which you can account for that 10-year horizon in terms of growth. So we certainly ascribe to all of the necessary New Hampshire DOT procedures for the preparation of a traffic study in that regard. I wanted to speak next about traffic generation for the site. Using standard rates and equations published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, we were able to develop the projected site traffic that accounts for not just the gas station convenience store component, but also for the self-store, or for the storage area in the back. As it turns out, during peak hour periods, the storage facility is practically negligible. It's single-digit traffic. The real primary generator for traffic on the site, I think it goes without saying, it's going to be the commercial retail component in the front of the site. But what we're talking about for total trips of the site is approximately 272 trips in the morning. That's the combined, the total of in and out. 231 trips in the weekday PM peak hour, and during the Saturday midday peak hour, 208 trips. That number may seem somewhat daunting. However, with a retail use such as this, gas station, convenience store, there's empirical data that shows that most of the traffic that is entering those sites is already on the adjacent street system. We would refer to that as a pass-by trip. In essence, think about if you purchase coffee now in the morning, more than likely you'll probably hit a place that's already on to work or, sort of on the way, make your purchase, and then continue on to towards your destination. Approximately 75% of the total traffic associated with this development is already present on Route 3A. So in terms of new traffic to the study area, it's a very small amount. You're roughly talking between 55 to 65 new trips in any given peak hour period. So again, you're going from magnitude of 200 to 300 total, but of those, only about 25% represent actual new trips to the study area. So what that translates to is to very minor impacts north of the site and south of the site. But what that does create is a fairly substantial impact right where everything is concentrated, right at the site driveway. And that sort of leads to, Jay, you've got this in your list, the mitigation plan.
Yeah, Jay, if you could call that up, please. Thank you.
And indeed.
Thank you very much for your help with that. I appreciate it. This is a little tough to see, but I'll at least try to walk through verbally. And Jay, I don't know if it's possible to zoom in sort of more to the driveway area. That might at least give a little flavor. And then if need be, I have a paper copy, which isn't as great, but I'm certainly willing to share that or present that to. Yes. May I approach, Mr. Chair? Certainly.
Jay, in the upper left, there's a plus sign on that bar.
Nope, that's all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Almost had it. There you go.
I can put my cursor there. We are.
And again, yeah, I'm more than happy to talk through it anyway. So I do appreciate
zoom
the
in more?
assistance, though. I can get going, and the chair has the hard copy, which I'm sure he's going to pass around. But just generally speaking, based on the traffic volumes, the projected traffic volumes for the site, we did find that there's geometric improvements that are warranted, based solely, on the project. For starters, at least on site, we felt providing that 2 egress lanes from the site was appropriate. So that's a separate left turn lane out of the site and a separate right turn lane out of the site. So what that does, left turns, most folks, realize, I encounter it often coming out where I work. Left turns are a little bit more difficult to make. You've got to cross 2 streams of traffic. So if you can provide a separate storage lane for left turn egress vehicles, that'll allow customers that want to make a right out a little bit easier movement to exit the site. So we felt that was an appropriate site element, and that has been incorporated into the plan. But that obviously, that helps us out. So the next logical question is, how are we really going to mitigate the off-site traffic in terms of impact on State Highway and the public road system that the town would be concerned about? And what our analysis determined is that the appropriate geometric measures are as follows. We are proposing a northbound left turn lane into the site. So obviously to the right here would be north. So we're providing a northbound left turn lane into the site precisely. And that turn lane is being designed to accommodate the anticipated traffic into our site. In addition to that, we are proposing a southbound right turn lane into the site. And in essence, what both of those, we would refer to them generally as auxiliary lanes. What those auxiliary lanes allow is for vehicles destined towards the site to remove themselves from the mainline traffic stream. So in other words, we've all been behind somebody that wants to turn left, and you're kind of waiting forever if there isn't a dedicated pocket for them. So we're going to provide those turn pockets for both left turn entering vehicles and right turn entering vehicles. Highlighted in yellow, really all that is the projected pavement widening. It's just to make that pop a little bit more. And in addition to the widening, what we're also proposing, and Mr. Petropoulos alluded to this earlier, we're in essence going to fill in the sidewalk gap. There is sidewalk on the east side of Route 3A presently that terminates at Albuquerque Avenue to the south. What is being proposed, and which is presently under review with New Hampshire DOT as well, the department has the exact same plan and study that the town received. We're proposing sidewalk connectivity from the current terminus at Albuquerque all the way up to the site along Mr. Charbonneau's property. We are proposing a crosswalk across 3A, and then we will continue the sidewalk across the frontage of Mr. Chiro's property, terminating at a point to be determined, but we thought it would be a good idea to bring that into the conservation area parking lot. So that is what is presently shown. So we're trying to establish some connectivity where there presently is none, or there's a gap, or there is a need. So that is effectively, we feel that what is proposed here from a mitigation perspective is appropriate for the level of impact that the site will have.
Bob, if I may, Jay, if you could just pan out for 1 second. During my brief presentation, I mentioned, and if you could shift it over to, yeah. So you'll see how the roadway improvements, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, pretty much ended the church driveway, St. Francis Assisi, up in the upper left corner.
Yes.
Okay.
We're matching into the
Yeah.
existing
And
pavement.
then you'll
at that
see
point.
Mr. Charbonneau's driveway, Continental Paving's driveway right there to their parking lot. Jay, I don't know if you can get your cursor on that, right there. Right, so that improvement being proposed will allow a left turn pocket for safe haven to enter into Mr. Charbonneau's driveway in that particular location. And then lastly, in red, up at the very top left is that sidewalk extension connecting to Albuquerque. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm certainly willing to take any questions, but that is all I have for the moment. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Okay. So does the board at this point have any questions they'd like to ask the applicant? Yes.
I just have one on the sidewalk. I came from another discussion in a completely different meeting. The width of the sidewalk, more for winter cleaning, the machine that they use on Albuquerque to clean, the sidewalks. Do you remember we were trying to add the Pinecrest sidewalk and it was too narrow? They couldn't get the highway department couldn't get the machine on to clear the sidewalk. So I don't know how wide this sidewalk is.
As proposed, 6 feet. I believe that meets town standard, and I believe that would meet any requisite state standard as well. But if there was further discussion on that, we'd be happy to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll get a hold of the highway department and see what that means. Was it expected there was going to be cleared in the winter? Was that the expectation?
It's within the right of way.
That's what we needed to have a conversation, is all I'm saying about that. About
DOT
winter.
would require that the town would accept maintenance.
Yeah, okay, so I'll bring it up so they can
Certainly. Thank
see
you for
about
the
it,
question,
what's
though.
gonna
I
clean
think
that
Highway wants
sidewalk.
8, whether that's realistic or not, I don't know, but.
Right, okay, just a background thing to keep in mind.
Ken, when we brought the sidewalks up from the beginning,
Yeah.
that the selectmen actually have to sign this application.
Right.
That they're gonna maintain the sidewalk.
Yeah, but I was talking with the highway department, and I said
Yeah.
6 feet wasn't wide, it was too small with the equipment we had, so I I agree with you. Yeah.
Well, but that's why, when we started this, I tried for 8 feet. you guys cut it back to 6 feet.
It's a minimum of 6. Not a maximum.
I didn't know that the equipment couldn't clear a 6-foot
I'll double check with that. I think Kim, did you hear that from, you did as well, right? Kim Kleiner's behind you, Rick, yeah. Okay.
It's because of the type they use.
Okay.
As long as you keep it consistent the whole way, whoever builds it after this is fine.
All right, we'll have a chat.
James?
Thank you.
So, the letter from the Conservation Commission, which I think you have, so I actually agree with many of the concerns that they raise. The sign, so there's a slide that shows a sign, a mobile sign. Is that what you're proposing would go on the road?
Jay, if you don't
That
mind,
sign
the
detail.
the presentation plan, colored plan, display plan, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's the one I was talking about.
Yeah.
Is that what is proposed?
Yes, sir. And that, if you turn right around, you see our curb cut. Just to the north of our curb cut, it says proposed sign. It's in that
Yeah.
location there.
And it would be that sign?
That's the intent, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so, I gotta say, I was sort of hoping for a little more subtlety in signage.
Okay.
Because I don't think that sign is appropriate, in my opinion, for that part of, for any of Charles Bancroft. The other thing is the canopy. I don't see any detail, but maybe there's a lot here. Would the canopy, the design of the canopy mirror at all the design of the retail business?
Right now, sir, the canopy was intended to be a flat roof.
Yep. Metal?
Yes.
Okay.
We did receive the Conservation Commission letter today.
Yep.
That spoke of an alternate canopy, something with a little bit more relief, I guess.
Yep.
We're taking that under advisement
Okay,
as we speak, yep.
okay. So that's open for discussion.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the self-storage area, you said it's gated and fenced. There's 24-hour access?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
And is it lit 24 hours?
My understanding is there's security lighting, low-level security lighting.
Okay. Are there motion sensors on some lights?
We'll get that answer for you.
Okay. Because, as I remember that we did a project for a self-storage facility on the south side of the city by Licks. And I think we had conversations about that. And I don't think that, I don't think that facility is accessible 24 hours a day. I don't know. It'd be interesting to look at the site plan for that to see what we approved, but I would be interested in something that would be more similar to the site plan that we approved
Okay.
for that facility. And I think there was concerns about lighting as well. And I know that the Conservation Commission has concerns about lighting that would intrude on the conservation space. So
We can share that plan with the applicant.
that'd be great. And then the parking, maybe this is a question for Jay, but I know that there's gonna be discussion about a exception to the requirement for the number of parking spaces. Do you know why that number of parking spaces is spelled out in the rules?
It's been there for a very long time, so I can only speculate, but, a lot of towns pretty much just copied each other.
Yep.
I don't know that there was ever any kind of analysis. There probably was at one point way back when, but
Right.
my suspicion is it was probably borrowed from another town, if I had to guess. But those standards have been there for as long as I can remember.
All right. And the requirement you said was what, how many? 100 or so?
109.
109.
The total required for the developments there is 109.
Yep.
69 spaces for the retail and 40 spaces for the self-storage facility.
Yep.
So,
Which doesn't make a lot of sense.
yeah.
That parking standard is also not nuanced. It's kind of a general standard for retail.
Okay. So the parking standards don't sound like they're based in any reason that we can point to. They seem sort of, they were in existence. We don't know why they were in existence. We can't tie it into a rational basis.
I can't say there never was one, not that I can recall.
But not, as we sit here now, can we think of a rational basis for that, for 109 parking spaces in that facility?
No, and in part because retail facilities vary in their type. You've got retail facilities where people may come and spend a fair amount of time shopping. A use like this is a really high turnover. People don't come here and hang out.
Right.
They come and they go. So that's kind of one of the nuances that our parking standards don't really reflect.
Okay. You talked about a coffee vendor and a pizza vendor inside the facility, and that there's a drive-through window, which I'm assuming is for the coffee,
Yes,
like a Dunkin' Donuts type of operation.
yes.
Similar to the Irving station on Wazorick. Right?
I'm not aware that they have a drive-through.
Oh, yeah, oh, God, they do.
They do, yeah.
Some days there's more
Yeah.
cars there than you could imagine.
Yeah.
Is there, would there be seating inside of the facility, like for people to sit and have coffee or to sit and have pizza? Is that considered to be like a place you pick up and leave, or that you would eat in?
I don't believe there's any seating. I'm going to defer to Renee. Maybe Renee will.
We haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
That's,
Generally, not. Even that Irving station you alluded to, if you go inside, I don't believe there's any
Yeah, I don't think there is either.
seating in there.
No, no.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure they sell, actually, I've never been inside, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure that they sell pizza. Okay. I think that's it for now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I have
Yeah,
several questions I'd like to ask.
Well, I'm just curious, should we accept the application before really diving into it? Or
Well, certainly, I mean,
I also have a lot of questions.
yeah, okay. Yeah, we can certainly do that. What I want to do is give the opportunity for the board to just make any statements if they want to have any comments. Then what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna ask Jay on his comments. I'm gonna go Lou, the building inspector, and then I'm gonna open it up to public comment. And then when I close public comment, what I'm gonna do is I'm kind of doing this backwards, I know, but we're gonna do the acceptance.
Okay.
My sense is there's a lot to this project, and we're going to have to see how we want to go about reviewing it. For example, if the next time we have a meeting, do we want to deal specifically with parking issues, with traffic? One meeting dealing with design of the building. I think we have to sort of break it up because there's a lot of things here on this site. Another thing to think about too, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but possibly maybe the board doing some sort of a visit to the site with the applicant, if the applicant so chooses to have the planning board out at the site to do an actual walking of the site. So I'm going to wait on that, but why don't you ask your questions now? We'll get to acceptance, and I haven't forgotten about it, so.
Go ahead.
Just a few. I want to piggyback on something that James said about the signing. But my question with the signing is the type of lighting that is intended there. Are we going to see being big bright lights, or are we going to have a toned down
Gas stations tend to be well lit, sir.
I
I'm
know.
not gonna tell you they're not.
Yeah.
Usually it's well lit under the canopy, in that the surroundings of the retail building are light poles and maybe a couple small wall packs. We've done the picture points which we've submitted where we attempt not to have light trespass off the property. Lights, I believe, are off once the facility is closed at night. But in terms of those lighting levels, I'm not a lighting expert, but it will be a well-lit facility. Downcast lighting, dark sky friendly type lighting, yes.
I bring that up because there's been a lot of discussion about projects, proposed projects, and the amount of light that's giving off to the neighborhood.
Sure,
And I think that we might want to consider
sure.
toning it down a little bit. There was mention, when you were talking about the traffic, about an impact on St. Francis of Assisi.
No, I just said what the limit of our construction work is a little bit of shoulder work there. We're not touching St. Francis's driveway, no.
Okay, I wondered.
Yeah.
Clarification on that, okay. And then the other thing was this, the rainwater. You mentioned a pool with lining.
Yes.
Does that just sit there? Is it treated? it
We're,
sits there,
we're,
is it
we're
true?
purposely creating what's called a stormwater pond. Yes, it is a pool of water. It'll have vegetation with it, and they will act to allow residents and settling of solids coming out of the stormwater, as well as the uptake from the plant material. So it's intended to be a stormwater pond for cleansing and treatment, and quantitative treatment as well before it goes off-site.
Okay, not a polluted type of pond, correct?
Well, I don't think so.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. And just one last thing. I was also interested in the possibility of seating in the,
Okay.
in the retail area, or, you know, getting the food there too. And there are several gas stations, and some of them are Irving's, that do have it.
Okay,
It might be a nice touch.
great, thank you.
Kate, did you have anything?
Yep, I had a couple questions. If the fire suppression system ever goes off, is that just run off into those ponds?
Fire suppression,
Well, you know, look at the, underneath the, like
canopy,
if there were fire at a pump,
okay,
I would expect that there are a lot of chemicals that come out to
Okay.
suppress that.
okay.
What happens to those chemicals?
So, you know, gravity is our friend here. It's gonna collect with curbing and catch basins into that first stormwater pond. And that's one of the reasons we lined it, so that it's not working its way through groundwater, so it would be caught in that location. That upper pond then will be piped into that lower pond, so there's a little bit of redundancy there, with regard to that. Now, if a disaster such as that would happen, obviously, there'd be cleanup where somebody like Clean Harbors would come in and be able to clean both the site, but also they would focus in on that pond as well.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any idea what the view is from the river of the storage units?
I don't. It's about 500 feet away.
Okay, and I believe it's up, it would be up the hill, would you?
I believe we are as well.
Okay. I know you said you were still debating the colors on the storage units, and I would just encourage that anything that can be done to help those blend in so that the view from the river is not impacted as much as possible. And speaking of, honestly, I think overall this project is a positive impact to the town, and my largest hangup is the visual impact to the town, which I know a few members have alluded to already. The branded colors, I'm not personally a huge fan of. The in our site plan, ordinances, it requires that any roof that is longer than 50 feet be broken up, and no flat roofs are allowed, I think flat roofs are discouraged, it says. So I would take that into consideration, like you said, for the canopy of the pumps. The colors on the sign also, I believe that the sign ordinance should also apply for this zone. There shouldn't be red and green colors on those lighted signs. They should be amber lights, and that's in accordance to our sign.
Lighting, you're saying?
The
sign.
yeah, the sign, the prices.
Okay.
We show them as red and green. Our sign ordinances require any lights be amber.
Okay.
The digital display part of the sign ordinance.
And yeah, honestly, so Jay, I sent you a picture through email just now. Are you able to pull that up? Did it come through on email?
Maybe. I'll have
Okay.
to search my email though while I'm showing it on the screen, which would be a little weird, but I can try.
It should be right up top. I just sent it to you a minute ago.
Be careful,
So,
Jay.
I will real
Seriously.
quick. Because I just passed what I believe is a new mobile station on South Willow Street, and it is, I would say that does not fit in with the character of that section of Charles Bancroft. The amount of lighting, the reflection of the white roof
Right.
underneath. You can see the branded colors, like that gas station is meant for South Willow Street or 102. I don't believe that belongs in our northern commercial zone. With, we have Morse Falls right up against it. We have, that beautifully restored historic home across the street, in front of Continental. Edwards is set back, and it's a more industrial building, but it's not nearly as well lit as this is. The barn-like architecture from the townhouses that are still being worked through, that's more the character that I think we should see in that zone. And the houses around it too. You just don't see that type of lighting. Even the most well-lit thing on that area is probably the Litchfield, the Welcome to Litchfield sign.
Or St. Francis.
Right, or the new St. Francis sign along there. So to have this, we just have to keep in mind that the character also includes what you see when you're driving at night, not just during the day. And I had a question about the left turn lanes. Are those meant to be, you said left turn pocket into Continental and a left turn pocket into the gas station? Is that right?
What is formally shown on the plan right now, just because the opposite side of the street, nothing is warranted, we could construct something for the opposite side of the street, basically carve out a section of what is proposed there without doing any further widening. We weren't aware of a specific development to make that happen presently. However, the design that you see before you, if there were something to happen on the other side of the street, that could be accommodated within that width that is proposed on Route 3A right now. So that as proposed on that plan, that is the ultimate width of 3A. And we would call that a 3-lane section, basically one northbound travel lane, one southbound travel lane, and then you've got that 12 feet in the middle, which at certain intersections, like Mr. Turo's site, could be a dedicated left turn pocket, or you could continue that width down, because it actually matches as proposed. There is a current 3-lane section further to the south as you're approaching Albuquerque. So what we did from a width perspective, we just tried to fill in that gap so you have continuity in the geometrics between Albuquerque and Mr. Turo's property. So, sorry, that's the long answer. Yes, it could be accommodated within that plan, but no, we did not specifically show the pocket there for the
Okay.
east side of 3A.
So are you thinking it's the type of center lane where it's dotted lines in the center and then a yellow, full line in the middle? Or is it like, here's where the traffic is just to turn left into this lane?
I know exactly what
Sorry,
you're
I don't
referring to. No, that's,
titles
you
of it.
described it perfectly. Honestly, I think it's a little too early to determine right now. The state of New Hampshire, DOT is gonna weigh in on that if and when that comes about. I'm not trying to avoid your question. I just couldn't unilaterally state what it would be this evening. Again, I think for our purposes this evening, the primary focus was really on providing the left turn pocket into Mr. Chiro's property. That said, I think there's enough flexibility with this layout where we could accommodate either scenario that you proposed. But again, I think it would be a little premature on my part to say what it should be, only because, again, New Hampshire DOT is reviewing this plan simultaneously, and I'm sure they're going to have comments on it as well. So
That was more my curiosity. I
No,
would
it's
definitely
okay.
defer to the experts on what should go there for sure.
No.
Time's up.
I have one last question. Right, sorry to put everybody to sleep, Jason. Is kind of the pocket between were those high velocity pumps or were those diesel pumps? That separate area of pumps towards the south end of the property?
yes, those were the high-speed diesel pumps.
So where the storage unit comes out, is there any sort of like, are some of those traffic, is there a stop sign or anything for, say, the traffic heading south so that the storage unit traffic can come out easily? Or is there a stop sign at the storage unit? Or is that just like a big open pavement? Trying to understand the.
Yeah, we have some painted markings in our site layout plan that help motorists kind of negotiate through there. It's unique. It's unique, but I think that's an easy move coming from self-storage. They'll just stay in that right lane. We could have some painted arrows there, and they will get by the dispensers on the right and into the curb cut and go either right or left there.
Okay.
I think that's a fairly easy move. But yes, our this is more of a churched up plan for the graphics tonight, but our layout plans do show more signage and more pavement markings through that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was all that I had.
Okay. Just quickly, so a couple things from me. Number one is, I know that you've been to the Lower Merrimack Local River Advisory Committee meeting. I was at that meeting last week. I know you folks presented your stormwater management plan there. There was talk from the Lower Merrimack River Advisory Committee about spills, particularly gasoline spills. How are those going to be managed? How do you, if something, God forbid, something should happen, who's going to be responsible for shutting them off? Whatever the practices and procedures are for doing that. Something to think about, something to consider as we go through this process. Two, I would encourage you to look, we do have our master plan, which has a design chapter that we've worked on. That may be able to assist you in looking at how to design the building, or for how this would look in terms of a final product. So be sure to look at that. Obviously, we emphasizing the character, the rural character of the town. That's very important. And the last thing I would say is landscaping. You are abutting a conservation area, which is very popular with people in town. This is I know this is a commercial site, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we keep that area buffered, and I'm sure the Conservation Commission can speak to that. But that is something that I think would be of concern to me. So those three things just to keep in mind in the back of your mind. Jay, do you have anything you would like to add? this evening?
I think we've addressed most of the comments, that I had a concern. I did just note and comment on the traffic study that I do think that the traffic study overall, I think, the conclusions are reasonable. The methodology, I think is, acceptable. I did note, though, that we should look at Corning Road. That's come up in the Corning Farm development. There may not be significant impacts, but I think we should look at that, particularly also in light of the improvements which are proposed in the 10-year plan for Corning Road for that intersection, and we can share some of that information with you. But that's probably an intersection improvement that would involve an additional turn lane in that vicinity as well. Both a turn, basically a similar section that you see where Albuquerque is today. So that's just worth noting. And then I also did express some concern about the potential conflict movements right in this vicinity here, particularly since we would probably anticipate, particularly at peak hours, some stacking with that left-hand turn movement. So kind of how does this whole area here function, under that scenario? Overall, though, I think the plans are really, it's a very comprehensive submittal, and when you get to that point, I do think that they're ready for acceptance.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Lou, Karen, we have our engineer with us this evening. Lou, do you have any comments you'd like to make this evening initially?
Yes, I had reviewed the plans back in November and submitted a letter on the 17th, and generally speaking, plans are pretty well put together. I just had minor questions regarding some of the details. Again, everything can be easily remedied. I think the biggest issue I had was with the drainage calculations, a little unconventional, so I think it needs a little more discussion.
Okay. Mr. Blackwell, I know you're here this evening. Do you have any comments as building inspector for the town?
Well, the one comment particularly pertaining to acceptance of the application would be that a conditional use permit is required for this project for approval by the planning board.
Okay.
I'm not sure if a conditional use permit has been submitted or not.
Yeah, I think when this was submitted, it was I think there was an assumption there was a special exception, but I think you're right in that a conditional use permit should be a part of the application.
Okay.
May I ask for what?
The zoning ordinance was changed, so I think you went to the ZBA and you got relief
Right.
specifically for this, but the zoning ordinance was changed to say it was a conditional use permit, not a special exception. You got a variance to allow this use. I think it's a detail. I think you can just ask for it as a part of it. I wasn't quite sure why you got a variance for this use, but at any rate, a gas station, convenience store is a conditional use under the zoning.
Under the zoning.
The variances were for the requirements of the conditional use permit.
Right.
Some of it, right, so.
It was a little weird.
Okay.
Can I just ask one more?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, can you talk to me a little bit about the truck fueling stations? There were 2 of them, I guess, planned. And what sort of trucks are you anticipating use that? Are these tractor trailer?
I
Big rigs?
think I'm going to ask Frank Montero to answer. Frank, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, is widely regarded as an expert in these facilities, and I think maybe if you have questions on how they function and how they fuel, I think he'd be a good resource. Plus, he doesn't get paid if he doesn't speak, so he's gotta say.
Well, by all means, let him speak.
I'll speak. Thanks, Jim. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Frank Montero with GPI out of Salem, New Hampshire. I'm a professional engineer. Excuse me. Yeah, the fueling area to the side is for tractor trailer vehicles. It's been designed to accommodate a larger tractor trailer vehicle. We anticipate more box type truck use, but it has been designed for that as a worst case. There are 2 fueling locations with 3 islands, so a lot of these trucks have satellite fueling tanks.
Okay.
So they can fuel simultaneously on the driver's side and the passenger side. So technically, there's 3 dispensers, but there's 2 fueling locations. So when one truck pulls in, he can fuel from both sides of the truck at the same time.
I see. But it's it's meant to accommodate larger
Yes.
trucks.
Yes. Yes, it's difficult to restrict the type of truck that might use that facility, so we find it better to design it to accommodate a worst-case scenario than not to.
Okay.
I would just like to clarify one of the questions that was brought up on the fire suppression system. It's actually a chemical, it's a dry powder material that comes out of that system. It's not a liquid that would flow to the drainage system. So it's a dry chemical material that would get swept up if it was activated by a heat detector, yeah. So it's not a liquid, it's like a bunch of baby powder flying out of these canisters.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that clarification.
And one more thing before I open up to public comment. The tanks, I noticed on the plan, I know that one of the storage tanks for the gas is pretty close to the road and I think to the conservation property. I don't know how that's configured, but obviously something to think about. I don't know if that's something that can be changed or, I don't know, but something to keep in the back of your mind. Because I was concerned about that. When I saw that on the plan, I was like, okay. If the board doesn't have any, oh, Lou, did you have something?
Yeah, on the fire suppression thing, or the fuel spill, when I was looking at the plans, there was a drainage structure between that upper detention pond behind the station and where it reconnects into the drain system and goes down the road. A little unusual to have a drain manhole in there, and I asked about it. And the answer I got was specifically it was introduced to provide a point where they could arrest a flow in this drain manhole. They could actually perhaps block it and keep flows from getting past it. But it was a point they could focus on if there was a big enough spill that it started flowing into the drain system, into the detention pond, and then heading down towards the river. But so there was a stopping point. Perhaps something could be added to that drain manhole that would be like an instant gate dropping or something to block the outlet to contain it. And you also have these pillows you can put in that absorb fluids, which Meredith, another town I work in, by Lake Winnipesaukee, we did that in a lot of catch basins upstream from the lake to help absorb any fluids that came down, fuels. And the other thing, I didn't mention anything on the traffic study. I thought it was well done, and I didn't have any questions about it. And the DOT, as soon as I saw the turn lanes, any questions I had were all over. They were, I think it's, again, the passerby trips is the ones that, the number I always look at. Like, how do you, most people going in a gas station, they don't leave their house to go to the gas station and go back home, but they're going to Manchester, oop, I'm half empty, let's fill it up. And they had a decent number in there for the passerbys. That's where you can kind of fudge a little bit, I guess. And so no fudging here. I thought it was pretty good. So.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Is there any members of the public that wish to comment on this application this evening? I see a hand. Is that Jason Brennan? No. Conservation Commission, okay. So, I mean, did you want to come up and, or, I'm sorry.
Jason Brennan, Chairman of the Conservation Commission. So is this a good forum just to quickly go over the letter that we wrote?
Sure.
Okay. So the Litchfield Conservation Commission received an abutters notice for this project. And at our December 1st meeting, we reviewed the plan as a commission and then put down some comments. We've actually, just a little bit of history, we've actually reviewed this plan many times over the years. In fact, I think many years ago, they wanted to put the gas tank above ground so, and build a barn around it or something like that. But in general, the Conservation Commission at our last meeting didn't really have any significant comments related to the site plan itself. The traffic, the parking, the tank location, anything like that. There were no comments made from the Conservation Commission in regards to that. And I think in general, if you polled the people from the Conservation Commission, it looks like it's a pretty good plan. There's a lot of folks that have put a good amount of effort into that part of town over the past years, cleaning up Moore's Falls, cleaning up across the street, Edwards Auto, and that's kind of the one lot there that could use a little bit of help, and I think if blended in right, I think it'll be personally, I think it'll be a good addition to the community. But we did have a few things to consider, and I'll just kind of quickly go through my letter here. The Litchfield Conservation Commission reviewed the Thoreau Development Plan during our December 1st, 2022 meeting. The Conservation Commission is an abutter to the proposed development, as our Moores Falls Conservation property abuts the property to proposed development to the north and actually to the west as well. So upon review of the plan, we offer the following comments for planning board consideration. We have four things that we're looking at. Number one, retain and potentially increase buffer vegetation. We would like the planning board to consider retaining as much vegetative buffer as possible along the border with Moores Falls, and potentially even increase it in some areas where it's a little bit thin. So we're not talking anything major here. I think that one of the big concerns is that on their plan, they actually had outlined pretty well areas where the vegetation is not going to be touched. But sometimes when construction happens, oops, a few extra trees get cut down, and next thing you know, things kind of open up. So I wanted to just make sure that what is clearly stated on the plan that is not going to remove, we'll try to keep that, make sure that stays. And if we find areas particularly up along where the parking lot is at Moores Falls, where the gas station, where they kind of meet, if it starts getting a little thin there, maybe we can work with the developer to add a little bit of extra, throw some arborvitaes in there and just try to make it so we can't, so the visual impact is minimized. And as I mentioned, the Conservation Commission is actually amenable to planting additional vegetative buffer along the Moores Falls property if necessary. And so the goal of the buffer is just to minimize, visual impacts, noise impacts, and light-related impacts. So that's number one. And there, actually, there's a map associated with the letter, and there were two areas that we were looking at that we just wanted to pay close attention to. The area at Moores Falls where the parking lot is, and then actually in the back, letter B here, there's an area where they're going to be doing some tree removal where the path that goes down to Moores Falls is actually pretty close there, so maybe just keep an eyeball out on that. So that's that. Number two is mark non-disturb areas prior to construction. So again, we looked at the plan. It's pretty clear where they say they're going to retain the tree line and retain vegetation areas. Maybe just mark them ahead of construction so they don't actually accidentally get mowed down. Number three is there is a little bit of a concern about trash, and we're thinking of potentially, or we'd like to consider, the developer to consider simply just adding a trash receptacle at the property line. We have a trash problem at Moores Falls. Kids go in there, they're drinking, they're doing whatever they're doing. There's trash on the ground. Maybe having a trash can at the property line might give them a place to throw the trash out. And it might help mitigate trash coming over from the development onto the Moores Falls property. And then the last one is just try to minimize lighting impact as much as possible. And I think that buffer will help that out. We actually took a look at your lighting plan, and I don't know how it's recorded in lumens or how that's recorded on the actual plan itself, but it looked like, based on the lighting plan right now, the impact to Moores Falls and all the neighboring properties looked actually pretty minimal. And we'd just like to make sure that is minimized as much as possible. But overall, I think the folks on the commission generally feel that it's a good plan. We just want to make sure that the impacts to Moores Falls are minimized, and I think the things that we're asking for here are pretty reasonable, adding a couple trees here and there and just trying to retain the buffers. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Jason. Appreciate it. Anybody else have any comments? Yes, Mr. Charbonneau.
Just say I think it's a good project, and if anything, I'm glad you're looking at lighting. I appreciate that.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Before I go into, okay, so I guess one of my issues then, is any other questions for public comment? I'm sorry. Okay, this time I'm going to close public comment, and I'm going to bring it back to the board. Any further questions from the board? Okay. So I guess the question is, this is a conditional use project. Has the applicant submitted anything that would be required for the conditional use, that would be required for the acceptance of the plan? Do they need to provide us with any documents for conditional use?
There is a form,
As a form?
a conditional use application form.
Is that a requirement that they have for this, to accept the plan for completeness, I guess is my question.
I think you could accept it subject to submittal of the form.
Okay.
Because I do think there's ambiguity around the zoning board actions, but I think that would be the cleanest way to do it. You could defer acceptance, though, if that's a concern.
Okay, I guess that's up to the board, what you guys are thinking you want to do. I mean, I'm certainly open to suggestions, but those are alternatives. Now, we can defer it, and basically, they would have to come back for the acceptance with all of the conditional use paperwork and all that stuff, or we can make it a condition of the acceptance tonight that they provide it within a certain time frame, I guess, or however that works, however the board wants to do it. What is the?
I would have to make it like a motion, but
Yeah.
The second option, that you, I don't want to repeat all of it.
You
Where-
mean
where it's a condition.
Where it's a condition that they provide us with
Right.
those documents?
Instead of coming back.
Okay. So with that said, Joan, do we have all of the fees paid? All of the abutters have been notified for this project, is my
Correct. We
understanding?
have all the fees and abutters have been notified.
Okay. Jay, are you satisfied, based on review of the plans, that we have everything we need for a completeness, acceptance of completeness in terms of plans, in terms of, documents presented?
Yes, with the understanding that I'm assuming that the board will defer action on the waiver request, so it'd be
Right.
subject to that as well.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, and one last thing, is there regional impact to this project? That is a question that I have to ask. Do we see regional impact as an issue for this project? This gas station, I don't know.
Staff does not, but that's, a question.
Staff
for
is
the board.
recommending that there is no regional impact. What is the board's thinking on this?
I don't, like Lou said, it's mostly the passerby traffic. It's not pulling more traffic
Okay.
towards the station. That's my opinion.
All right, so with all of those things in mind, I'll entertain a motion to accept the application for completeness with the condition that the applicant provide documentation for conditional use. How long do you think you can get that to, Joan, or do you think in terms of those documents?
Within a week?
Within a week? Okay, so within a week, that would be a condition, and to defer on the waiver request, as noted this evening. So that would be the motion.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Kim. Is there any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion to accept for completeness, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 5-0-0. Okay. All right, so the application has been accepted with the condition that those documents will be provided within a week's time. for conditional use and deferring on to the waiver request. My next issue is the board interested in doing a site walk of this site? Given that this is quite a project, and or is the board interested in doing that, I should say? Is that something that you might be interested in entertaining?
I'd be interested.
You'd be interested? Okay, would the applicant have any objection to that?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, when would we want to do that? Any ideas?
No for it now.
Right, I know. It's like,
It's hunting season, remember that?
when would
Well, I mean,
when would they be,
I'm not joking.
when do we expect to see the application next?
well, I guess the thing is, they have to provide their conditional use documents to us. We've accepted it for completeness, so I guess the next phase is going to be, how do we want to proceed in terms of the site plan? Do we want to deal specifically with a particular issue for the next time, whether it be traffic or circulation or something on that matter? Do you want to look at design? What is the will of the board? I think things like that. I mean, we can look at whatever you.
I would recommend design be the first thing that we.
So you want to look at the design of the building?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so maybe for the next meeting, we'll be reviewing this project as terms of the design. So I would encourage the applicant to refer, as I said, to the master plan design chapter in Litchfield. I think it's a very good chapter, and I think we did a lot of work on that a while back. And also keeping in mind that we're looking, so I think obviously we have a lot of comments tonight about rural character and all that sort of thing. Something to keep in the back of your mind. So do we want to do anything else? Any other issues
Well, is
at that meeting?
Is that next meeting, is that the 20th or is
Wouldn't be
that-
the next meeting.
It would be, the next available meeting
It's
would
got to be
be
the next
January
available,
3rd.
would be January 3rd. So would you be ready to have that discussion at that time?
That's my question.
And maybe we can talk about at that time, because hunting season will be over, I assume, in January, about maybe doing a site walk of the property.
There's no hunting on Morris Falls, is there?
If there is, if you don't post it, you can wear orange, though, you're pretty safe, you're very
Yeah,
safe out there.
That's what I don't think we need to worry about that as much
No.
as the weather.
Okay.
The weather's more of a concern.
And by design, does that, you're including landscaping, lighting, signage?
Well, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Did you want to do that as well, in terms of the building and then all that other stuff?
Yes.
What I was gonna
Okay.
recommend.
Yes.
All right, so
If that's not too soon for,
if that's,
Applicant.
if the applicant is good with that, obviously. So we would be focusing on design for that meeting. We'll be focusing on lighting, on landscaping, all those things, buffering, whatever. It's, that meeting is gonna be specifically deal with those issues. Then at that meeting, we can decide after that where we want to go next, if we want to go back to review traffic. You may have plan changes that you want to submit at that time. We can go over those. I want to try to do this as, in a piecemeal way, only because there's so many things on this site. And it is a large project, so at least if we cover certain things in a meeting, I think it'll be a lot easier to digest for us as a board. So that's just my opinion, or my suggestion, to do it that way. So, do you want to do a site walk? You want to schedule it now, or do you want to schedule it wait?
Schedule it now before, while the weather's halfway
Okay.
decent.
No, there's always snow for us.
Well, of course, and I assume that we'll
so we
probably
can do
be
it on December
storm.
23rd, so we can have a white Christmas.
Okay. I guess when are you folks available to do it, if you're willing to do it?
We're available when you are, sir.
Okay. Do you, I don't know,
I mean, weekend mornings usually seem to work well for,
Is anyone available on,
for everyone.
well, I was gonna say Saturday? Is that an issue, or
I'm not available this Saturday.
what about the following Saturday? Which is what?
17th.
17th, I'll be out of town.
17th?
Probably don't want to do it Christmas Eve.
No.
You could bring treats.
Yeah, because at this point,
Could we make,
evenings.
could we make a weekday work?
Is anybody objectionable to a weekday?
I can make a
Sunday.
weekday work.
Okay. Anybody else?
I don't know if everyone can though.
Yeah, so I don't need to go on a site walk.
Okay.
I'm good. I think I
All
know
right.
enough about the site, so.
Fair enough.
A weekday would not work for me.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I'd have to be
It
considerate.
probably wouldn't work for me either, so, I mean, if I were to do it, it would have to be on a weekend.
Yeah.
In the morning, maybe. So,
Is the 11th Sunday morning? Is it, no, yes.
anybody
Is that
available
Tuesday?
on the 11th, Sunday morning?
It'd be maybe
This
for me,
Sunday?
but I could do it another day too, so.
11 would be good.
The 11th? How's everybody feel about the 11th?
What time are you talking?
Probably like 9 o'clock. Is that okay? Or 10,
Shovel in the
What's the
driveway?
weather? Let's see what the weather is thinking.
weather permitting?
Would you be able to
I
make
assume
that
it's
work?
probably
Jay?
better.
I don't know if I can do the 11th.
Sunday's
Do it.
weather is 35 and just cloudy.
What
There you
happened
go.
on Saturday morning?
Okay.
Probably do it later. I couldn't do it at 9 AM.
What time would be later,
I
Jay?
could do like late morning or early afternoon.
11?
Yeah, I could do 11.
How about 11 o'clock?
Sunday.
11,
Sunday, the 11th?
11 on the 11th.
The 11th.
11, 1 o'clock, going once, going twice?
Does that
I
work
guess
for you
Is
guys?
that the Sunday? You said Sunday the 11th?
Yes.
That's this Sunday.
If you go
Sunday.
Mike, 1 o'clock, it doesn't get dark till 4, so you'd have, whatever.
Unless you want to do it in the afternoon, late afternoon.
1 o'clock works for me.
1 o'clock?
Yeah.
How about 1 o'clock? Does that work for everybody?
Does 11 o'clock work for you, Jay?
Yeah. I could do 11, but I could do
11's
1 o'clock
better
as
for
well.
you. Okay,
11 o'clock?
so 11 o'clock on the 11th of December.
What? That's
I
easy,
just,
11 o'clock.
I'm sorry, I can't do 11.
It doesn't work?
I can do 1 o'clock, but I can't do 11 o'clock. I just looked up
Okay.
the sports schedule.
Can you guys do 1?
Sure.
All right, well, 1 o'clock, sure.
Sorry
Okay.
to
All right.
go in
All right,
circles.
so 1 o'clock on December 11th will be the site walk.
Hockey games are usually in the afternoon.
What do you want to see, Mr. Chairman? Because we can stake out like the front building just to give us a
Yeah,
sense
well,
of
so
position.
certainly I would like to see where the building is going to be, where the gas station pumps are going to be located, where the storage tanks, and obviously the storage and anything that has to do with
The ponds?
the ponds, yeah, if we can do that.
Is back where that last storage unit, is that accessible right now?
Yeah, it's very thick growth, ground cover growth in the back, but why don't we cite the last storage unit, the one furthest to the west, maybe the first storage unit, curb cut, building, and canopy, and then we'll figure out the rest when we're out there.
Okay. All right. So December 11th, 1 PM, sidewalk, planning board, the row. Okay. And the next meeting is going to be when?
Their next meeting is January 3rd.
January 3rd. Okay.
Your next meeting is December 20th.
Right, no, I get it.
Right, okay.
Got it. Yeah, that's what I mean,
January
their
3rd.
meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
January
okay.
3rd.
All right, so the next meeting for this review is going to be January 3rd at 7 PM here in Town Hall.
You want a motion to continue it?
I'm going to absolutely, I will entertain a motion to continue this hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Do I have a discussion? All those in favor of the continuance to January 3rd at 7 PM here in Town Hall, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 5-0-0. Okay, so we will see you on the 3rd. And as I said, we'll look at design,
See you
landscaping.
Sunday at 1.
11.
What's that?
We'll see you Sunday at 1.
Well, we'll see you Sunday at 1, but I mean the meeting here, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See Renee.
Chairman,
Oh, I don't know.
Chairman,
You don't want to go, Jim?
like, take a 5 minutes so I
Last
can
time
get
we were in the snow, it
Lou
was
some
down
plans.
to
I'll
the
be back in
river.
Okay,
a
we're
while.
gonna take a 5-minute recess so that Joan can get some plans.
Yes,
So,
that was treacherous.
That was a little dicey at the Darkhold Farms in the snow.
yeah.
We had someone in there.
We did give them a letter, so we haven't heard from them saying storage unit for review at this moment. So obviously.
Actually, you might wanna give this.
Oh, does the gentleman want that back, the traffic count? It's him, can you get him? Ron, can you, he gave us this photo.
No, that was this you're talking about.
Oh, do you want that back? Does he want it? Oh, you wrote on it.
I think I wrote on it, I'm sorry.
Oh, you did you want it back?
You're welcome.
Can we keep it? I'm sorry, I wrote on it just because I had to keep it.
I said traffic count.
Yeah, well, okay, so there you go. I'll frame it on my wall.
20 years ago or something.
Great.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Lanes called, the center, the middle lane.
Because we're always having
What is
this
that called?
discussion of how many spaces should be there. And I think the first project we had.
Okay.
That's for
Turn
James.
lane. That-
Something for your interest.
My interest.
I learned at the last Lower Merrimack meeting.
I don't appreciate those.
Put this in. I don't know, you're putting into my Christmas baking time here.
To go over there, and
It's an amendment.
Really? They're coming back?
existing law, but
Oh, interesting.
Who's coming back? Are you going?
Target.
Target.
it's way over the last.
They're gonna build a distribution center
Where? Over
right in
there?
that same spot.
Are they really?
Right, that makes sense. I
But
was just curious.
supposedly,
They don't
I
look like they're
couldn't
doing
it's gonna provide more,
there,
they've
that's what-
actually
I've heard of what, like,
gone to the
state
town
says.
and they're gonna give them money for, it's actually a smaller
Interesting.
building. So they're gonna have more open space, all that stuff.
Right,
Should be interesting.
that makes sense.
Compare pre and post, you've already
Money
got
talk.
So we're meeting at 1, right? 1 o'clock.
And the less,
That's what I was thinking.
Gotta get into my Christmas baking time here. Just saying.
Into the old Christmas.
If the boy's 12, he's about to hit teenage years. I gotta make it
Yeah, that's right.
special.
How many years of those left?
Exactly. I gotta burn the cookies now, you know? So yes, these memories.
I'll help you with that one, okay.
They're gonna come out fabulous.
That's the plan, obviously.
Mike?
Okay, great, thank you so much.
Except for the minutes.
She wanted 5 minutes to get, Joan, to get those plans.
Need a play there. Expensive.
I'll have to talk to the board about the sidewalk equipment. I mean, maybe they have to make a purchase to clean it or put a bobcat or something. When they get a sidewalk, maybe the board of selectmen will, maybe we have a bobcat or something.
It's interesting if you look
Do the sidewalk, I don't know. Well, I just found out about it talking to the road agent. That's something completely different. Oh, for the Pinecrest sidewalk,
Wait, the Pinecrest sidewalk.
because that's only 6 feet, right? That's a small one.
Is it? I don't think
Yeah,
it's even 6 feet.
That's short, because then he said it wouldn't turn around. Let me double check with him.
You would have brought that up when we had, you know,
Oh, when we discussed it.
deliberative, all of the
People are just
board.
pulled in every direction, yeah. But I mean, if it's a bobcat, I can do it, I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah, a little push, thank you.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna resume the meeting. Thank you.
You'll give me a
You
call.
leaving? Bye-bye.
They will.
All right, so,
Excuse myself, Mr. Chairman. I have an early morning.
understood, I get it.
We have enough to vote?
You're excused.
Yep, we still have a quorum, we're good.
We have a quorum, we do. Well, thank you for joining us, and as always,
See you soon.
have a good night. All right, committee,
Oh, hold on, I wrote one down. It's boring.
Is that what you wanted to see?
So I'll go to committee reports. Any reports from any committees? Kim, I guess you'll.
I don't really have reports, just when we're meeting next.
All right.
Board of Selectmen meets on Monday, December 12th, 6:30 here at the Town Hall. We'll go over the SIP deck that you just went over today, the SIP plan, right? And NRPC's quarterly meeting is December 21st at 7 PM at NRPC's office at 30 Temple Street in Nashua. You want this? Here, this is all I said, that one and that one. That's all I have.
Okay. The Lower Merrimack Local.
Actually, I have one more thing.
So I'm going to ask if anybody has any business that they need to do. We're going to kind of continue with the meeting because we got to kind of wind things up. I'm sorry. Thank you. That's all right. So committee reports. Kim, can you?
I had one more item. Zoning ordinances, I think the budget, didn't Dan, David's son, want them on December 15th? Now, we don't have any financial impact because we're on article time.
Right.
Right? So we don't have a financial impact, but I don't know what the hard stop date is for those. I'm hearing December 15th, but the ones that we wrote up before, not the ones from last meeting, but we had done some synchronizing with the state laws that had changed about going to the Board of Selectmen after 25 days or 60 days. Remember, there was that stuff that we had done.
Those were site plans
Did
and
we
subdivision regs.
did
so
we
those don't
approve
have to-
those?
Those don't have to go to town meeting.
They do not have to go to a town meeting?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
good. So we don't have anything there.
Right.
All right.
It's just the home occupation one.
I did give information to the Heritage Commission about the demolition ordinance to clean up the flow chart matching the actual ordinance, which one they wanted to match.
Right.
Because the town bought into the flow chart, and the warrant article actually matched the zoning ordinance too. So I don't think they're gonna be done in time. It'd probably be next year. What they were gonna change was the criteria for a demolition permit.
Right.
To be, right now it says had to be, hard-coded 1960 and older, prior, and greater than 500 square feet, or greater than or equal to, something like that. So they just need to maybe not have a hard-coded year,
Yeah.
make it
50 years.
slide to say 75 years old or, older. And then the flow chart said greater than or equal to 500 square feet for the structure. And the ordinance said, I think, I don't know, that was off by one. It was, one was greater than or equal to, one was equal. But I think if you pull a shed permit, they're never gonna get 499, you're gonna get a 5x10. You know what I mean? So they're gonna clean it up, but I just don't know if they're gonna be done in time. But would that have to come in front of the planning board?
No.
It's zoning, it's 1040 is the number.
Oh.
In the zoning ordinance, 1040.
Oh, then yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if they'll have time this year, if that hard stop is December 15th,
That would be
Yeah. unless they have an
not
emergency meeting.
impossible, but it would be
Tough. Okay,
They would have to hurry. It's still possible, but they'd have to
right.
hurry.
Okay, I let them know twice, so,
Yeah, because you don't have to have two public hearings. You only have to have one. You just can't make substantive changes. So the second, the theoretically, the planning board could hold a public hearing on that on January 17, and we would still be within the timeframe. That means that we
Tight
would
one.
need that revised language no later than the first week of January, really the end of December, we'd want that language. So if they could do it that fast, it'd be possible.
right, and if they can't, then they wait
If
a
they
year.
can't, then wait
They
till
wait
next
till
year.
next year.
So those are
Okay.
pretty simple changes. Those aren't complicated.
Did we have any other ones of ourselves that had to get to warrant article?
The
Because
only one
they're
that
holding them.
The only one, was the home occupation.
And we still have legal to look at that, right?
Yeah, but that
So
won't
do
be
we
hard.
have any warrant articles this year?
Just that one.
Just that one, yeah.
But we haven't approved that ourselves, right? You're talking about last meeting.
Yeah,
I
no,
read the
it's-
minutes.
I mean, it
Right.
still has to go through
Right,
the
it has to
public
go through the
hearing
process, but I think
process.
it's
Right.
being reviewed, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
By
so
legal, right?
A couple edits.
we have until January 17 for that. If they need the number of the warrant article, we can give them that.
Yeah, I just keep seeing a hard-coded date of December 15th, but I can find out. There's no money impact, but I just want
There's
to
no financial
find out.
impact, that's right.
All right, and then legal, again, I'm worried about the firearms, tobacco,
We'll make sure,
firearms,
yeah.
and alcohol
We'll
group.
get that
I just want to
opinion.
make sure we're not undermining a federal law.
Right.
I mean, it's a
We'll get
business,
that
they have a
opinion
right
for
to
sure.
sell. I just want to make sure on that. All right, so we really only have the one zoning ordinance, although you had multiple changes in our,
Yeah,
it's in our
we
minutes.
talked about
We did a
other things
very
we
good
could
job on
pursue,
that.
but we decided not to move forward with the
Right, the,
residential in the northern
Right.
commercial. That was really biggie, but to give that some time.
Right, we're gonna take a look.
So I must be confused on which one you're talking about for home occupancy then.
The home occupation, the two versions, remember we have
There was like a tier one.
tier
and a
one and
Yeah.
tier two.
occupation that we talked about. That's the one that we,
That's what we're talking about.
That's one we're postponing for now.
yeah. No, that's what we're moving forward
That's the
with.
one that's moving forward. That's the one that's gonna go.
So it's just tier one and tier two, nothing about specifically saying firearms or
Right.
not? Okay.
Well, I think tier
well,
two-
no.
Tier two does involve,
Well, then
Tier
we
two
still
does
need legal
involve
to look at it.
Right, we'll get legal to
Which
look
is
at that.
being done.
The one that we decided not to move forward with now was,
Overlay.
the residential.
Oh, yeah, that I agree.
Yeah.
We have to look at that. We have a workshop coming up on that.
The 20th, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you set a date for the hearing for
So
the,
we should go to January 3rd for the hearing if we can.
okay.
So, okay, I'll let Board of Selectmen know we might have one for the home occupancy, but it's being reviewed by legal.
Well, it's not yet, because
Yes, we're still working on it.
You
I still
haven't-
have to think of,
when you set it to get finalized to go to a hearing, then it would go to legal.
okay. So, but would only have one is what I'm gonna tell the,
Right.
Yes.
potentially one.
So I had mentioned to Kim that I hope.
Oh, you just, you spoke with her. Okay, good. That's all I have now. I'm sorry.
it's all right, no.
See little notes.
So the Conservation Commission obviously met at the fire station at the beginning of the month.
December 1st.
December 1st. Obviously, they went over tonight, as you see, the gas station plan. That was one of the things that, and they provided comments. The Lower Merrimack Local River Advisory Committee meeting was last Thursday at City Hall in Nashua. It was very well attended from the town of Litchfield at that meeting. And I believe there are, I think it's 2 people who are looking to be appointed to that position, so. But we did have it more than 2, we had 4, so. There was a big interest. I think the Lower Merrimack was very surprised of all these people from Litchfield that we kind of took over. So
Used
they.
to be Merrimack, so.
Well, it used to be Merrimack, not anymore, right? So the meeting was very well attended. We had a lot of projects on that, particularly the gas station here in town, and a couple of projects in Hudson and in Merrimack, so.
And let me just say that I'll get, for January 3rd, I'll get that letter on the portal and anything else I was missing, the fire department letter and fire
Got it.
department from
Okay,
November
yeah,
and
yeah.
all that.
That's fine. And the Capital Improvement Committee is sort of winding up, as you see tonight. We did our presentation to the planning board, and we are on to the Board of Selectmen for December 12th. And that's all I have.
Budget committee is meeting on Thursday, and we will be continuing with the school voting. This is the top level voting for the school budget. And December 15th is when the town and school will be presenting warrant articles to the budget committee. So I'm curious if that's your December 15th date, is just the articles that affect the budget. That
We'll
a
find
tax
out.
impact. I'm thinking that might be where that December 15th date comes from. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. So now I'll go on to the approval of the November 15th, 2022
Could
minutes.
did you add anything about the Monday open house?
Oh, yeah, so I will add that. So just so you know, thank you, Joan, for reminding me. So Monday,
This
December
Monday,
12th,
December 12th, from 4 to 6, an open house here.
here in Town Hall, correct.
Town
An
Hall.
open house for the public here in Town Hall. So the public is welcome to come.
There'll be refreshments, I guess.
And I guess there'll be refreshments. and
Prizes, some kind of prizes.
Some kind of prizes, so looking forward to that, thank you.
And come see the decorations.
Yes, the decorations.
Just
Oh,
did a
okay,
nice job.
very
Did an
nice,
excellent
yes,
job.
very nice job.
Decorating town hall.
Yeah,
for the
I like that,
holidays.
like that look,
Looks nice.
very nice. So approval of the November 15, 2022 minutes. Did everyone have an opportunity to take a look at those? Have any questions?
I do have one change, but may I add one more thing prior to that?
Okay.
I did go to the NHMA lecture series, and from a planning board point of view, did you attend any of these, the online ones at all?
I didn't, I couldn't.
Okay, it was an interesting one of, I don't remember the town, but it was local and around this area. A gentleman had gone to the planning board to approve like a 55 and older community on a lot. He went through variances and all of this, he was approved. 5 years go by, maybe 10, didn't do anything with the lot. He went back to the planning board with a different plan, not a 55 and older community, but something else. They approved it. He didn't do anything again for like another 5 years. He came back again, and he said, I liked plan number one better, the 55 and older. And he wanted to use the variances that were approved in the past to apply current. And it obviously got turned down after going through a lot of litigation. So what they were proposing, I think happens now, and you probably see it more than we do here, is on drawings now, they can put that you must start the project within 2 years and you must complete it within 5 years. There's like some time frames you can do, which is hard because if you don't get your permits, like if you're near the river or something, you know, or your DOT, you might not be able to start it. So they were trying to maybe have people think of putting these start and timeline end times on them, but that can pose its own problems too, so.
Okay, I mean, we've done it. We did
we
it
have done
with
it here?
Mel's.
With Mel's. Remind me on how that happened?
We put it was specific. It was specific to the Carnage haunt. They had to complete
Take
the
it-
improvements.
Yeah, because they were they were in trouble.
They had a date to do it by,
Yeah.
and then we wound up holding a compliance hearing. So.
Yeah, they had over the summer, and I think they had
Yeah.
till, like
Yeah, I think we
September or
had until
something.
like
We
a date in
yeah.
September,
Yeah.
and
'Cause we were trying to
and
get
then
them
they came in for an
compliant.
extension.
Right.
So because that's the other thing is if you do say you've got to complete it within a certain time period, they can always come in and request an extension.
Yeah, but we were forcing them to get more compliant, right? That was what we were there. Remember we,
Well, they had to, we held a compliance hearing because the condition of approval was that the improvements had to be done by whatever the date was. And they came in that summer and said, we're not gonna make it, basically.
Yeah.
so for
Give us an
example, if the
extension.
gentleman here that just came in for the gas station
Yeah.
couldn't do it in 5 years, then I don't know what happens if he runs out of the deadline. Obviously comes back, hopefully, but
But it's certainly something we could consider doing, sure.
I just thought it was a dangerous thing, but we can maybe have a discussion on that, yeah. Okay,
Could I add one more thing before the minutes?
Yeah.
Lou mentioned that he heard DES changed, which the Corning Farm plan is approved, that he heard DES change the bottom of the sumps to eliminate the sumps, so any change like that should come back for a review to the planning board?
Yeah.
I'm asking.
Well, what do you think,
They
Jay?
changed the sumps.
They changed, they removed the sumps, so there'll be a flat bottom at the drains, catch basins, there'll be a flat bottom and no sump. I don't know the reasoning, but this is what he's heard. I could follow up on it with Reggie Moreau and see if that is true, and
Would they have to amend their plan or something?
that's what I'm asking.
is this a water over, is
Sounds
this
like
water
a
runoff?
engineering detail that I
Yeah,
don't
it
know.
doesn't really,
Okay.
I don't know if that was an issue for the board, so I would say no.
What's that about, water runoff?
Engineering detail. Okay, that's what I need to know.
right, we did. We made it on contingent that Lou basically,
That's right.
his
that's right.
approval.
Right, so
Right,
Blue's
right.
okay with it.
I
Yeah.
think
Okay.
it's, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Follow up. Thanks.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Can we get to the minutes?
In a minute.
All right, so you have questions about the minutes?
I do.
Okay.
You're right here. You can take my copy. I'm going to change on page 3, after number 10, where you start talking about a paragraph here.
Start talking about what?
Page 3.
Yeah,
After
10,
number 10, has my name there.
Okay.
Commented that the commercial district, it says, I crossed it out, would be at Litchfield's northern and southern parts. I just want to change that to say the commercial districts are currently zoned at the northern and commercial parts of town. And then the second line said noted they would need to get buy-in from the town, since it's a zoning ordinance. I want to change it to say noted that this type of land use change would need to get buy-in from the town. It's not like we have to get the buy-in. Yeah, the town has to agree that the land can change. So I'll just hand this to you. I think, and then I was just worried about the ordinances themselves, just as long as it's going to legal with the word firearms in it, that we're covered. That's all I had. Thanks. You did a good job on those ordinances. They were huge. Good job.
So Kate, did you have any?
I was hoping to add a detail, and I can write this out for you later, after the fact, but a couple paragraphs down from, also on page 3. It says, Ms. Stevens noted she was initially against building homes in the commercial district, but has since changed her mind. She commented one could not build businesses in the district without having a community around it. But really the real reason for changing, or just being more open to the idea was that to only limit it to commercial would basically require it to be developed as 102 is developed. And now I'm seeing that doesn't seem to fit so well into that northern commercial zone, so
How do you
I'll
want
make
to
that
rewrite
more,
it?
can I make that more succinct?
Do you want to rewrite it, send him an email to
Is
what
that-
you said?
Is that all right?
Well, you
to-
can't change what you said, so it's got to be what you said, or more succinct to what you want to have been said.
See, I think
More
I need
correct,
to-
I want to say.
I think I need to look back at the video and see exactly what I
Okay. Oh,
said,
that's a good
and then
idea.
just summarize it, better than this, so.
Okay.
Because I know that I said that, I just don't know my exact language.
Okay. Then you'll send it to Matt?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 15th, 2022 with those amendments.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second, do I have any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of approval of the November 15th, 2022 minutes with the amendments, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 4-0-0. Okay. Any other business? Joan, do you have anything?
No, I do not.
Jay, do you have anything?
I do not.
Okay. I do not have anything else, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Have any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to adjourn, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 4-0-0. Thank you for joining us all this evening. I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we will see you again, December
20th.
20th. Have a good evening. Good night.